today I thought it would be fun if I read one of my new fiction stories to you. So if you don't know, I am a horror writer and I do have a podcast called The Tantalus Feast, and I do have a few of my horror stories there. However, this is one that I haven't posted on there yet, and I thought that it would be fun to share it with you first. So this is an older story and I've just kind of recently revamped it, and I'm excited to read it to you. So this is definitely a horror story, and just in time for Halloween. So let's get into it. This isn't my favorite story that I've ever written, but it's just fun for the spooky season. So I hope that you guys will stick around while I read you this story. Ready? I'm ready. Okay, I'm a little nervous too. All right, so this story is actually called Concrete Hearts, and here we go. Let's just get into it. I open my lids and am greeted with the unpleasant welcome of nothingness. Blackness fills the void in front of me as I try to orient myself in this newfound vacancy. As my eyes attempt to focus in the surrounding abyss, my retinas begin to assemble a picture. After a few moments, I can make out the gray, rough texture of a concrete wall. Staring blankly, my face devoid of expression, I begin to wonder where in the hell I am and where in the hell I've been. Have I just woken up, or have I been aimlessly staring at the mortar all night? Is it possible that I am dead, or have I just begun living for the first time? I shake my head to rid of that groggy feeling that has burrowed itself between my eyes and lids as my hands grip a familiar material. I glance down and see myself sitting in my old lazy boy chair, green with brown lines running vertically, and I am instantly comforted. I've always loved that chair. It's only in the basement now because Norma didn't think it went with the rest of the decor, though I'm sure an old worn-in chair would fit in quite nicely with the dozens of porcelain chickens she scattered about the place. I subconsciously begin rubbing my hands along the arms of the chair, as I've done a million times. Memories surface of all the NASCAR races I've watched in this baby. Liquid fills my eyes to the brim, but I resist the urge. Sucking back tears through their ducts, I, for whatever reason, feel both desperately alone and eerily at ease. As if for the first time, I slowly take in everything in my view. The basement sits how it always has, yet it seems immeasurably different. The surrounding concrete encloses me in four tall walls, comfortable, familiar, and as empty as a tomb. They're the same four walls I always see when hiding in the basement as Norma busies herself by adding a new chicken to the kitchen. Yet somehow, they're different. It's the darndest thing. But don't they seem to be breathing themselves, slowly and steadily? And doesn't each block seem a bit brighter? Like all the dust and muck from the past decades have vanished overnight? I know that sounds crazy. After all, they are what they've always been, concrete blocks. Not much to look at here. Norma has just recently sold all of my junk in a yard sale when I was out of town for a funeral. I only raised my voice when I found that she sold my dad's old tools for 20 cents apiece. "You'd never use them anyways," she had said. "What could you possibly fix?" I wept when I found a lonesome screwdriver I had forgotten under the kitchen sink. Norma said I was acting like a child, but I had just found the last living relic of my pops. He died before the two of us wed, and I know he shook his head in protest, lying in his grave the night I got down on one knee. If only the dead could speak. If only the living could listen. My eyes venture down. I'm wearing an old pair of once black, now gray sweatpants Norma bought at the local market, accompanied by a once white, now stained with ketchup and God knows what else, NASCAR shirt. White mismatched socks sit at my feet, and that once gold, now dull wedding band rests on my left hand. I watch its forward and back motion with shifty eyes as my calloused digits continue to caress the soft, worn-in material of my favorite chair. Sitting up, I rub at my eyes with the thick, swollen joints of my fingers. I don't feel tired. I don't feel as though I have recently been pulled from my slumber. I simply feel disoriented. Perhaps I had suffered yet another bout of sleepwalking. Norma has, many times, spent the length of breakfast bitching about how I ought to be now. This is a direct quote, please mind my language. "Tied down to the fucking bed while you slept." And I, generally white-knuckled, shoveling forkfuls of egg down my throat quick enough to prevent some witty response, nod in agreement. The memory irks me, and I stand in an effort to rid of it. I feel weak, exhausted, and alone, but not lonely, and trust me, there is a difference. At the tender age of 83, I suppose I know why. The basement is damp and dusty. I can feel the thick air fold down my throat and blanket my lungs in asbestos particles. Stumbling blindly in the chilly tomb, I make my way to the center and pull the metal string to drive out the light. The dull light flickers uncontrollably as I make my way to the stairs. I'm in no rush. Norma will wake when I return to bed, and I'll get an earful about waking her up for 15 minutes or so. You do know that I have a hard time falling back to sleep, she'll complain. You do know this, don't you? I'll nod to appease the beast, and then she'll hit me with a, oh, that's great. You know, you just don't care. And before I finish my apology, she'll be fast asleep again, dreaming of all the ways she can nag at me for tomorrow, no doubt. And after she has finally shut her trap, I'll be too agitated to sleep, and I'll spend the remainder of the night staring at the ceiling in the hopes that if I concentrate hard enough, her heart will stop. Don't get me wrong, I love her. I love her with all my heart, but I also love peace and quiet. I also love walking around our tiny house in my undergarments. I also love eating ice cream for dinner and not giving a fuck about high cholesterol or arteries coated in fried chicken. I also love dogs that I've been unable to keep as pets because they somehow run away when I'm sent on an errand to the market. I love shooting guns and watching television with the volume up. I miss fishing, whittling wood, and working on my blue Ford before I was forced to sell it. I once enjoyed loud Johnny Cash records and washing my clothes with colors and whites all mixed together. I don't care much for segregation. It's not that I don't love Norma. It's just, well, to put it bluntly, I enjoy my life a whole hell of a lot less now that she's been a part of it for 62 years. 62 years. That's 744 months I could have been saving up for more than this 2-bedroom dump. That's 22,630 days I could have continued reading the newspaper. That's 543,120 hours I could have been watching pornographic movies or napping for hours in my green chair. My point is that that's a lot of time wasted on nothing more than love. I don't expect you to understand, not until you're my age, and that sparkle in your eye that creeps to the surface every time your significant other enters the room slowly turns to remorse. It's time wasted, but wasted for her, I suppose. You can believe me or don't for all I care, but I do love Norma. Not in the kind of unconditional way you love a mutt, no, but that empty sort of one-sided, give up everything for them and receive nothing, spend hours a day listening to mindless nagging, replace all your possessions with fucking porcelain chickens sort of love. You'll understand one day, and when you do, it'll all be too late. Now at the bottom of the wooden steps, I'm tracing my ascent back to Norma and wondering if I should just spend the night in the chair. The last time I did, my back was out for a good week or so. I'd be exchanging a 15-minute argument with her bitching the entire 30-minute route to the chiropractor. I weigh my options, but there is no use putting off until tomorrow what could be finished tonight. What a feeling to know that soon you'll have your tail tucked between your legs and taking tongue lashings worse than when you were a child. I lift my foot to begin my climb to the white door that sits 16 paces from my fraternally matched socks when something stops me. A faint glossy drop catches my eye. I bend as far as my old age permits and see a maroon speck on the left side of the plank of wood I'm about to mount. I stand again, take another step, see another, and bend once more. It looks wet, fresh. Stepping back, my eyes trace the length of the staircase and detect spilled paint in an unsymmetrical pattern from the top steps to where my feet are firmly planted. Look at this mess. Norma will blow her top, but I try not to panic. She tends to avoid the basement unless there is something of mine to sell, and unless she can lug my Easy Boy herself, I think I'm safe, at least until tomorrow when I get it all cleaned up. I crawl my way up the last of the steps and let myself in through the basement door. Please let this mess end at the threshold of the house. Now in the kitchen, I can clearly see the same spots continue through the length of the house, like a toddler has been walking around with a popsicle on a hot summer day. My fear of Norma slowly turns to curiosity until it is all that is circulating through my veins. It looks as though someone has leaked beet juice throughout the place. It must have been Norma. Of course, even if Norma had been the beet juice culprit, her incessant bitching would only last until I gave her a hand and cleaned the damn place out myself while she supervised. At least there isn't a way she could possibly blame this on me. Or is there? Norma has been sleeping for some time. Is it possible that in my sleepwalking-induced stupor I created the mess? I do recall waking up a few weeks back to find a few heads broken off of her precious porcelain chickens. Though they were replaced, she hasn't let that go. My intestines pull themselves into an anchor hitch knot. I begin to sweat. In this case, I sincerely hope that I can see the worst of it. I'm not sure I can handle another morning lecture without allowing my fork to slip from between my teeth and into the fleshy pink of my wife's cheek. To avoid all possible confrontation, I might as well begin the cleanup now. My eyes become fixated on the spots leading to somewhere, like breadcrumbs in a child's novel. Norma has previously laid the dish towel on the floor in front of the sink, as she always does when doing dishes. I bought a mat once and it ended up in the trash. "The towel works perfectly fine," was her response. I slide the cloth along the tile floor with my foot. My right foot glides across the dollops of an unidentified liquid as I stepped with my left to find the end of the clues laid out for me in red. They continue along the kitchen, through the swinging doors, and lead into the living room and across the wooden floors. The television set illuminates the room with sudden bursts of white, then dull shades of gray. Cars are racing around the track silently, as Norma only allows me to watch my programs muted. I linger a moment to catch the end of the race I've seen and re-seen a million times, but the crimson drops call to me. They reflect light waves from the television set and summon me, insisting I continue my journey. I catch the cars finish one last loop, then continue on. Step, slide, and just like that, one more sarcastic comment is erased. Step, slide, and just like that, her passive-aggressive tone eases up a little bit. Now at the foot of the stairs, I can see the tiny dots race up the carpet and I roll my eyes. This will send Norma off the deep end. This will lend me the #1 spot on her shit list. I am already dreading tomorrow morning when my eyes flutter open and I realize the Grim Reaper hasn't responded to the prayers of a miserable old man pleading to be taken in his sleep. This will be abysmal, on the brink of World War III. Worse than the time I forgot to mow a patch of grass in the backyard. Definitely worse than the time I failed to remind Norma, for the 3rd time, that I was meeting Ralph, my eldest friend, down at the bar. I attempted to remedy that situation by only staying 33 minutes to ensure that I'd be home in 45 per her request, and haven't seen him since. Yet Ruby, slick stains on the carpet will leave her red in the face and my ears sore from her screams. I stumble to the steps, contemplating if eternal nothingness really seems as bad as everyone makes it out to be, while following the trail. I have given up on the dish towel. I'll see how bad the mess is and then reevaluate my plan of action. After arriving at the door of our bedroom, slightly ajar, I watch the trail of who knows what slip down the throat of the night until the drops either cease to exist or are masked by the darkness. I kick my left foot forward and the door creaks as it swings open. I wait for Norma's screech, but silence answers. I can only pray that she has taken a sleeping pill and won't be too disturbed by my presence. Walking to her bedside, I can see the covers pulled over my beloved's head. I stare down at the large heap that was once my beautiful bride. The mixture of love and regret fills my stomach and inches its way towards my mouth until I am tonguing it. It tastes of chocolate dipped in battery acid. I step back with every intention of allowing her to continue her slumber. I'll spend the remainder of the night cleaning up the stairs, and I just hope that if there is a God, he has stopped the spots from entering our bedroom. I take another step, and this time, step too far back. My rear end strikes the nightstand, which catapults a glass cup filled with water through the air. It tumbles in slow motion as I watch it smack against the wall while seemingly breaking the sound barrier. I cower in fear. Norma will turn at any moment, and I'll be called every foul name in the book. My arms are in the air, back of my hands covering my eyes, while I patiently wait for her words to slip my throat. But as the sound waves of the incident settle, the room remains motionless. I retract my fearful limbs and look down at the still hump. Pulling the metal cord of her lamp, the room pulsates with electromagnetic radiation. Yet my Norma refuses to budge. Those sleeping pills do help, but refusing a chance to start an argument just isn't in my Norma's nature, drugged or not. I take a few steps towards her and steady my shaking hands. I pull back the covers in one swift yank and gasp. Norma is lying on my bed, still as a cucumber, with my father's screwdriver stuck through the thick of her skull and a pool of burgundy below her head. Eyes open, focused right on me, and lips slightly separated, her facial expression says nothing more than she is consumed with boredom. Even in death, she is unamused. I howl and cry into the night. I want to grab and hold my dearly departed partner, but her blood looks as though it would create a large mess if I were to touch her, and I'd rather not stain my tea any further. Instead, I race to my side of the bed and lift the phone to dial 911. Holding the receiver to my ear, I place a free hand on my face and wipe away my salty tears. My hand slides down my wrinkled skin and over my mouth in disbelief. Listening to the dial tone, as irritating as Norma's voice, I freeze. A familiar taste rests on my lips, like sucking on pennies. It tastes like being a reckless child, falling on my bike and running home with both hands over my mouth. Pulling my hands back, a sticky texture lingers between the skin of my hands and lips. Looking down, I drop the phone. Both hands sit in front of my face, covered in blood. Norma's blood. I cry, I scream, I chuck the lamp at the closet door and throw my hands across the dresser, pulling its contents to the floor. I fall to my knees and grab at my face with my murderous hands. I killed her. I've killed my wife. After a few minutes of blubbering, I manage to get a hold of myself. I stand to my feet and wipe away my tears with the clean backs of my hands. I take a few deep breaths and walk back to Norma's side. She continues to lie still, unimpressed. I reach out to touch her, but pull my hands back. Instead, I inch closer until our eyes are mere inches apart. I scream in her face. I laugh hysterically, flick the handle of the screwdriver, and begin a victory dance, tears streaming down my cheeks and leaping to the floor all the while. I turn to the mirror plastered on the adjacent wall and flex. I've actually killed her. I am man. Hear me sit in silence for longer than 30 goddamn seconds. Rushing back to the phone, I regain a dial tone and hold down the 1. Speed dial handles the rest. A voice answers, gritty, tiresome, and familiar. Hello? I need your help, Ralph, I say. What? I'd like to bring Norma out for a boat ride. Silence lingers between us for a moment. What'd you say? I can hear Ralph sit up in bed. I've piqued his interest. A boat ride. I'd like to bring Norma out on your boat. A boat ride? Ralph questions, ensuring I'm not pulling his leg. Yes, Ralph. A boat ride. Laughter erupts from the other end of the phone. Ralph's raspy voice echoes in my ears, surrounded by the loose mucus in his throat and worn-out lungs. He laughs harder and harder still, until unhealthy wheezing and uncontrollable laughs intervene. He then attempts to catch his breath. Oh God, Coop, he says, winded. I've been waiting for this call nearly 30 years now. Be over in a minute. The phone clicks, and I'm left with myself. I walk down the stairs, into the kitchen, back to the basement. 16 steps later, I'm at the bottom of the stairs. A few steps more, I'm back in my lazy boy. I rub the arms of the chair with blood-stained hands. Sitting in silence, I stare at the concrete walls through new eyes. A large grin rests upon my face. I'm completely alone, yet not at all lonely. And believe me, there is a difference. Okay guys, that is my story, Concrete Hearts. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope it brought you a few laughs and a bit of spooks for this October season. This will be on my podcast eventually, although probably not this month, probably next month. But I just wanted to read you guys the story first, see how you guys enjoy it. If you want to listen to any of my other stories, they are linked down below. And if you are interested, my favorite story that I've ever written is definitely The Offering. I believe it's the last story I posted, so definitely check that out if you are interested. And if not, I will see you tomorrow with yet another horror video. Bye guys!